Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the January 28th meeting of the Finance Committee. Mr. Moriel, Mr. Sides, and Mr. Price are all on the phone, and I'm going to call this meeting to order. I need a motion I want to start out by saying that Sean is going to send us the amendments to the budget after this meeting. If you have any questions, get back with her and we'll put it on the board agenda. But if you have any questions, you can get back to her. Okay, so I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
4-0, aye. Next is approval of the minutes from last meeting, December 17, 2019. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's 4-0. Thank you. Next is action items. The first thing is the audit contract with Anderson Smith and what is it, White? Shauna.
So in your packet, you had the FY20 audit contract. It's time for us to go ahead and sign and get started on, they usually come in April to do compliance. There's really no change from last year. I didn't know if anyone had any questions.
So I note that the fees are pretty much the same as last year's, about $500 more.
Yeah.
And we've been using them for the last
6 or 7
years. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming, Shauna, you're happy with them?
Yes, they are very accessible for us when we have questions. We've had, I think just about every partner has worked with our district at some point, and they do audits for the majority or a good majority of the other districts in the state.
I think they did a good job at our board meeting at the beginning of January when they went through last year's fiscal year 2019's budget audit. So I think that was a good presentation that they gave.
Yeah, I agree. Are we looking for action here?
Yes, it's a motion to approve the contract for fiscal year 2020.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract for Anderson, Smith & White, Certified Public Accountants, to do our audit for 2020.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's 4-0. Draft budget calendar for approval.
So really, the only thing that's changed on the budget calendar is we've adjusted where the joint meeting will be in February instead of January. I know Dr. Houlihan has talked with the county manager.
Yeah, in my last conversation with Mr. Watson, they are looking at the week of February the 24th as a possible joint meeting. I do not have a time or an official date yet, but in that meeting, I think there are 3 or 4 items that I would recommend we discuss. Number 1, our CIP request. Number 2, our true-up request. Number 3, I think they are interested in having some more discussion about future planning in terms of long-range facilities. And number 4, any kind of budget update we may have at the state level. They're also looking at, we've talked and agreed to look at the week of April the 20th for a second joint meeting. And that is where the budget would be presented to both boards. So I will send out, once I have a confirmation of some firm dates, I will let the board know and see what our availability is.
Okay. So we want to approve this as our budget prep calendar today, and then we'll add the 2 dates of the joint meetings when we get them finalized. Does anyone have any questions about the calendar?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so
Motion to approve the 2021 budget preparation calendar. Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 This isn't 2020, 2021, right? for fiscal year 2021.
Mhm.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, next is the county water sewer rate increase that Mr. Sides asked to be added to this agenda. Mr. Sides?
Well, I think we've kind of hit on this previously. As the second largest user of county water and sewer, and considering where our funding comes from, I think it's would behoove everyone to have some type of agreement in place as to the charges we would incur, rather than going back around every year to cover the increase. Let's have some type of understanding for as long a term as we can get it at the best price we could get it. And this could also be initial discussions from staff and could be added to the agenda for the February joint meeting.
I agree that we have to have a conversation with the county with respect to the increase in water and sewer rates for next year. I think that that's something we can add to our agenda for the joint meeting in February. I had a short conversation with the deputy manager, Ms. Lancaster, regarding agreements, and she indicated that she wasn't aware of any agreements except for one with the town of Wingate with respect to sewer rates. It's not as simple as moving, like you talked, Mr. Sides, at the last board meeting about moving money, and that we got rid of that for the SROs. It's a little bit different. The water and sewer is an enterprise fund, so it's a separate business of the county. So the money does go differently, just like our after-school programs and our child nutrition programs. So it's a little bit different. So we can continue to have a conversation with the county in keeping in mind that our water and sewer rates are going to increase by about $240,000 for fiscal 21. So I have no problem having a conversation with them. I'm not sure that an agreement is the thing we want, but we want to have some sort of consensus of how we're going to do this.
So we have a question.
Go ahead.
First one is to Shauna. Shauna, how have we, I'm assuming water and sewer rates have not remained static year over year. So due to small increases, how do we forecast and work with the county, or how have we done that in previous years? Is it just we look at our water consumption and we look at the forecasted rate and that's the amount that we ask for?
Yeah, normally we have conversations with the county when we start the budget process of any increases that they know of, or any, like, how are they building their budget with what they know, because they usually have a little more information than we do. So we do use our current consumption and what our current budget is. Facilities has always been really good to work with the schools on their usage, especially in the summer. So we've tried to really manage some of that in that way.
So we had Shauna a month or two ago tell us how much we pay a year to Union County for water and sewer, and it was about $1 million currently.
Yeah, but we really haven't had any significant changes in those rates that really impacted the budget the way this would.
Right.
Right until now.
Next
Yeah.
question is there anything on the CIP or anything where we're looking at water conservation?
Mark.
As an example, something like flushless urinal, stuff like that, to see what we can do to cut down on water consumption?
Mr. Strickland's here. He's going to address that.
So as we move forward with project renovations, we always change out the high flow fixtures to what is mandated now by code, which is, I think, 1.6 liters per flush. We also utilize extensively the automatic metering devices. When you wash your hands, you press the button or the valve, and it runs for a certain period of time. So we've also looked at and discussed in urinals. They make waterless urinals. There's a canister that is contained in the device. I have some experience with them, and it was not great. I spoke with facilities about that some time ago, and they echoed that as well. So as we complete renovations at projects, we are looking to install devices that are lower flow in order to conserve.
Joe, I would add one more comment, which is one area I believe that we need to look at internally is our efforts to conserve water, specifically through irrigation. I know that in the past we've done that. It's been a challenge because, for very good reason, and I understand this, our athletic departments really want to have very nice fields and stadiums and be ready for the fall sports. But I think the level of irrigation is something that we could probably look at and address from a conservation standpoint, specifically over the summer months.
I can tell you that we do address that very issue. I don't know why I have the number, but we utilize or use about somewhere north of 15 million gallons a year for irrigation, and those are on separate meters. I know that several years ago, there were some issues during one of the droughts where we actually had to put locks on the meters because coaches were watering the fields when we shouldn't have been doing that. We are mindful of that, and we do talk to the coaches about that on a regular basis.
Are wells a possibility for irrigating the field?
We have one field that is on a well. It could be. We'd have to check with the local jurisdiction to see. We'd be pulling water out of the aquifer. There'd be permitting involved, but we can certainly look at that.
That water goes back in, though, eventually, does it not?
It does, but, at the same time, you lose a lot of water through evaporation, particularly if you irrigate at the wrong time of the day.
Right.
And with irrigation, we have separate meters, so we're not paying sewer. Okay.
Mr. Strickland, is it possible to do some kind of a study on what the cost of a well to be able to accommodate watering fields our size?
Absolutely.
What our water usage is going to be?
Absolutely. We can look at that at sites where it may be appropriate. I don't know that in a municipality we might have the option to do that, but we can certainly look at it at the high school sites.
Oh, okay. Mark, I'm sorry. Were you not finished, Joe?
No, I'm done. Thanks.
Mark, besides the football fields at all the high schools, what do they irrigate the practice fields and
Baseball, softball.
baseball fields?
Everything.
Baseball fields, definitely.
Everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you probably have at least 3 or 4 fields per high school that are being irrigated.
Correct.
More than that.
Everything. If we have turf field or grass field, it's likely irrigated.
Okay. Did you also have a chance to verify from our discussions on the schools that do not utilize county sewer? Were you able to verify we're not being charged?
I have asked, but the person that was going to get me that information has been out sick. So I hope she'll be back today. I asked about it yesterday.
That's reality.
What I asked Mark is we recently made a $1.5 million investment in a septic system at New Salem. And I was curious if there were any other schools that were either on also on the septic tank or on their own package system, because in your county water bill, they just take half of it and charge for sewer. And I didn't know if they were making accommodations for not utilizing sewer. What was it, 4 or 5 schools in total?
We have
Mark,
4.
I can't remember. I don't have that email pulled up.
We had 4: Fairview, Prospect, Union, and I can't remember
New Salem.
New Salem.
Salem.
Yeah.
I I'll check again today. Again, I expect she'll be back, and I'll get the information out.
Okay.
So,
All right.
so moving forward, we're going to have Dr. Houlihan and Mr. Strickland continue to talk to the county with respect to the water and sewer rates, and it is going to be a discussion at the joint meeting in February.
And we also have received some kind of accommodation from the county for the additional water charges that we estimated that we will incur in the remainder of this fiscal year.
I think that that's something we can talk about again. We don't know yet if we're going to need extra money. It depends on how the water usage is happening. So we'll know more about that in a couple months, but we'll have to discuss that as well.
Well, we should know that next month when we get our first bill with the increase. We'll at least have some kind of feel, won't we?
It's about usage, though. Go ahead.
And it'll be on, and it will be on a lag. You know, what we get in February will be for usage in January. So we'll just kind of have to see
Right.
how it, yeah.
But didn't the increase go into effect in January?
No, February
February
1st
1st.
for the first one. Next year is
So
January.
we won't see the first one until March.
Correct.
Correct.
I thought it was whatever.
It's February 1 this year and January 1 next year. That's what the confusion is.
Okay. Well, being on City of Monroe water and sewer, I guess I haven't been following that as close.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to make that an agenda item for the February joint meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, next is a budget update. Thank you, Mr. Strickland.
As it sits right now, we still, as I feel like most of you know, we still do not have a state budget. We are operating on an 18-19 budget.
So just to clarify, we have no state budget. Is there any hope that we will have one this year, or is it basically over?
As far as I understand,
Hold on,
I mean,
Gary.
they
Hold
won't come back until April, the end of April, like April
Okay.
28th.
Okay.
So I don't know how they could have an approved budget before June.
Okay.
And at this point, I don't know why they would. So we're trying to plan for next year as we start our budget prep, but we really don't have a whole lot of information. I'm hoping that sometime in February, maybe mid-February, when I get an update from DPI, that they may have some projections for us for enrollment. But what we are accustomed to getting as a planning allotment, we will not get.
So just so everybody understands, we have no state budget, so we're operating under
18-19 funds.
18-19 funds, right?
There, they approved a few mini bills, just
Right.
but really
But
most
not
of that,
to
but most of that was to increase our benefit rates. So, those kind of things have to keep moving, even though we don't have any additional funding.
Can
I
make
just
a
want-
comment?
I just wanted that to be clear to everybody, that it's no additional funding without the new budget. Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gary.
Well, this was a hot topic at the public policy conference I attended last week. And the thoughts are from the various lobbyists and what have you, is if there's not some movement either prior to the short session or immediately when the short session starts, it could be one of the shortest short sessions ever, and they will just adjourn, and we will not have a budget until they start looking at the 21-22 budget next year after the election. There's a real concern, since we have a biennial budget, there's a real concern that this stalemate will continue through the next fiscal year. So,
Yes.
I think the likelihood, unless somebody moves or figures out a way to compromise, that we might be in the same situation for the next fiscal year.
And that just makes our piece of an 18-19 budget even smaller when it comes to 2021 funding. Because I would assume the same thing will happen. There will be some movement in the state retirement rate and the state hospital insurance rate that will have to be accounted for, and there won't be additional funding
Without the funding
to
to do
offset
it.
it. Yeah.
I was going to suggest as the next board meeting, but I'll go ahead and throw it out there. I think it's imperative that we schedule a legislative breakfast to raise the temperature on this issue. Now, I know there are good arguments on both sides of the issue, but I think we have to, as a board representing 5,000 employees who are getting stuck without a raise except for in step, I think it would behoove us, I mean, it's our duty to raise this issue so that our elected representatives, if they don't already understand, that the pressure's building on this and somebody needs to do something. So I'm going to make that recommendation at the next board meeting that we have a direct line of communication and we start to raise the temperature on this issue.
Right. Our representatives did a mini bill to try to get the increases for the teachers in, and it didn't pass.
Right.
So if I can make a few comments about the current budget situation, I want to reiterate the fact that, yes, we have no state budget, and what impact is that having on us and on schools? As a result of that, and a lot of people don't understand, our financial system in this state is very complex. It's a combination of local, state, and federal dollars, and how you use those funds is dependent upon how you're legislated to do so in terms of allotments, which is solely based on enrollment at each individual school. And so historically, at least during my administration, we have had to take a hard look every year, mostly at the beginning of the year and also at the beginning of the second semester, which we currently are, at our staffing ratios. What is happening is because of the combination of a rise in increase in cost, a rise in services, maintaining the current staffing level, a rise in benefits, all coupled with a state budget that was reflective of our conditions a year ago, where the value of the dollar has completely changed from one year to the next. And what you're getting out of that dollar is completely changed. Yet in Union County and every other school system in this state is feeling this impact. We are absorbing cost at the rate of funding from a year ago. And it just is very hard to do. And as a result, we've been making some really tough decisions, as our board knows, and internally, to really be as conservative as we can in order to have the available funds that we need to carry through the year. Just in January, unfortunately, I had to miss the board meeting. Our auditor came and spoke, as you heard, and to be very clear, what he said was, in my opinion, and Shauna and Ms. Heintel and others can tell me if I'm wrong, but what I heard in watching him speak in that presentation, I would invite anyone who wants to go see that presentation. It's live and on our website. Is that because of a number of factors, state budget, the loss of our fund balances through the local budget, a rise in enrollment, charter payments. Just to remind you all that we have lost $9 million because of charter schools, and a number of other factors. The level of staffing, of servicing, of expense that we have been able to be accustomed to over about the last decade, we really need to take a hard look at that because it's just not sustainable. And we recognize that. We want to make sure that as we enter and close out this current school year and prepare for next year, that we're making very smart financial decisions. But because of a lack of a state budget and these other factors, we're in, as Shauna has said, we're in unprecedented territory here. We've never gone this long without a state budget. And we've never been in that situation, as our audit report suggested, that we need to be a little bit more conservative. And that's what we're doing. And I think as a superintendent, that's the smart thing to do. We have a great roadmap to finish out the year. We have no worries about our current financial system in terms of finishing out the year, but we know we need to make some tough decisions to get there, and that's what we've been doing. So I just want to be clear that financially we are in very good shape. We have some decisions we need to make for the future, but we are being as conservative as we can because of all of these factors.
Right. So when people hear the words hiring freeze and things like that, it's more making sure that we have the right people in the right places and utilizing our current employees for our
And the right staffing to student allotment and ratio. When
and moving people around based on that.
we're able
the
to
allotments.
move individuals around as we have retirements, resignations, people who move. We've been able to move individuals based on their certification in order to save funding and to right size schools when we have enrollment declines or enrollment increases. And that happens all the time. That has happened every year that I've been here the last 4 years, where we're moving folks internally in order to cover enrollment issues. I think that the interesting issue about this year is because of the lack of a state budget and because of what our auditor said, we are really trying to be, again, conservative with spending, with staffing, in order to save as much funding as we can to replenish those fund balances and other accounts that we have.
So there's no crucial jobs or crucial positions that are unfilled right now.
No, not that we're aware of. We don't have, I don't think, very few vacancies. Are we seeing a hit in some places? Yeah, I think EC, our exceptional children's program, is an area that we always are concerned about in terms of our state allotment and staffing, but nothing different than any other year in terms of identified positions. Even our math, science, our hard to fill vacancies, we're doing very well with those, even filling them internally. So this is a much different year than in years past, and I'm happy to advocate with our board to our elected officials on really the impact that we're seeing because of a lack of a state budget and other factors that I mentioned.
Right.
Drew, I just want to make the point, you concur, that the local funding piece is not sufficient to offset the challenges we face because of a lack of a state budget. We can't just go to the county and ask them to make up the difference for pay raises, etc. It's not enough. It would be impossible or improbable to get that kind of funding from the county to make up because of the issues with not having a state budget.
So I would respond to that with two answers, Mr. Sides. Number one, if we had known a year ago what the impact of this would have been, our board could have made a budget request to the county then to offset any of these conditions that we have due to a lack of a state budget and other local factors. Does that make sense? But we didn't know that then, obviously, so we couldn't plan for it.
My point is, we can't go to the county for sufficient funding to give our licensed staff and unlicensed staff significant pay increases.
That is correct.
That has to be a state responsibility because the sheer amount of dollars it would take to have an impact.
That's correct.
That is correct. And I would also add that also applies not just to staffing allotment, number of positions and salaries, but also things like bonuses, where those are approved by the legislature. Even as of today, we have not received funding for our third grade reading teachers' bonuses. So we don't have the available funds just to pay those out. That is a state commitment. So I would agree with you on that end. When you think about the number of staff and their salaries and other kinds of monetary, that is a state responsibility. We can't just show up at a county commissioners meeting, next week and ask for it.
Right. And if you go back to, especially, we keep talking about the audit partner that was here at the January meeting. He talked about the largest part of our budget is 70% is salary and people and stuff like that. So we have a $440 million budget all in, federal, state, and local. So when you look at that, it's a lot of money.
Well, and you have to understand too, for every person that we pay a salary to, it's 30 plus, almost
For
40% for benefits.
Yep.
That we have to.
So salary and
for
benefits
matching,
is what I
for
meant, right.
matching benefits. So,
I want to address one other thing too. When we talk about raises, I want to say that this board, other than state increases over the last year, has not given raises to anyone in the organization. We've done some reorganization things where people have moved up a step and stuff like that. But other than that, we have not approved raises. Cabinet staff, nobody,
That is correct.
other than state raises across the board.
well, and in this 1920 year, it was the second year of our compensation.
Right, other than, right.
Right.
But that was a compensation, not a,
Yes.
right.
Okay.
That was for the teacher assistants
Yes.
that went in, correct,
There have been no central office raises at all
at all,
for anyone unless it was approved through the state budget.
right,
And that was what, 2 years ago?
Yes.
yes.
So this is a shared pain across the board.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I think I would ask, I'm talking with principals this week, our schools are feeling the impact, no doubt. And as a parent, I can tell you that we're feeling it. It's just a different year. And I want to thank our parents, our teachers, and our principals for working through this with us as a team. We've got to make some hard decisions for next year even.
Yeah.
But we are sound financially for the rest of this year, and I have no concerns about that.
Yeah, I just want to be clear about some of the stuff you're talking about, which is really good information. We have not given raises in 4 years, just so people understand that. And 2 years ago was the last time you would have gotten anything from the state, so.
Drew, you mentioned you're in working with the various schools. I hope they are communicating this information to their PTOs and parents in whatever means possible.
And staff.
Because I really think there's one thing for us as an elected board to advocate for our system. But I think the frontline parents, if they understand the impact, I would encourage them to advocate to their elected officials as well.
Yes, sir. And, I mentioned this week even I'm meeting with principals, and to be fair, the last principals meeting we had where we talked about our budget was in November. And so I've got it on my to-do list this week to meet with them to make sure that they understand what to advocate for and what the message is based on what I've communicated today so that we can all get on the same page.
And we need to get the word out to these legislators while they're home before the short session starts so that they can get the wheels in motion and something start to happen either before or as soon as the short session starts.
Okay, anything else on the state budget? Thank you for the update. So the next meeting is on the calendar is February 25th. So you guys put that 8:15 here at the PDC. Unless there's any other question, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.